Real quick, I know it's nerdy for some people, but in case you're wondering about piston, uh, yes, it does matter what piston ring. So you know there's three rings on here. So this bottom one's an oil ring, right? There's really a piston ring orientation schematic online. They're always the same. Yeah, you have to clock everything. You want to make sure that these little gaps right here aren't lined up together on the ring. Got my finger right there. But let me just tell you the reason for these rings. This is called an oil ring right here, right? So what this does is literally there's oil from this part down in the engine to keep everything lubed up. This keeps the oil from going past and going into your combustion chamber, causing it to smoke and whatnot. Usually when a car is really worn out, this piston ring is either stuck inward. If you see it's kind of out right there, it's usually stuck inward and from dirty oil, and it can't break loose, so it can't come out and clear up the gap between the piston and the cylinder wall. If it stays inward, now that oil's coming up here, going past the ring and getting into the combustion chamber. But the job of this is to keep the oil down below. This is our second ring. What that does is when the piston comes up, it's actually chamfered on the inside of it, but it actually keeps everything scraped clean. So when the piston comes back down, any oil that came up, when the piston comes back down, it scrapes it clean and pushes it all back down. And then here's a top compression ring right here. This sometimes is chamfered upward. It usually has a dot on the top, but some of the brands like Hastings, it's not chamfered on the edge. But this is actually your compression ring. So if you notice this ring, they all stick out past the piston. What that does is when the piston comes up, it presses all that air in there and keeps it from leaking downward and allows it to combust. These also can worn out an old engine. So once these start getting worn out and they either collapse or they get stuck inside or the cylinder wall itself, it increases its clearance. Now this thing can't do its job fully because now it's too much of a gap. So now you start having a low compression. That's when you get tire worn out engines. Also on the other side, this is where the crankshaft journal goes. On all pistons, there's a flat edge, and this goes against the other adjacent piston. So this is number 2. So number 1 would be on the other side. And if you look really closely, it's going to be hard to sell, but there's actually a small chamfer right here. And this is what goes against your crankshaft journal. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll lightly coat the cylinder wall with engine oil. I'll get a piston ring compressor tool. It's right there. And I'm going to knock this down there. I'm going to take this cap off. I'm going to knock it down onto the crankshaft and protect the crankshaft by putting these little boots on the end of these little connecting rod. And then I'll pop the cap on there, put some driven assembly lube on top of it. I'll press it down and I'll actually torque it down. And once I torque it down, I'll mark it with a marker, and then I'll do it again and torque it down one more time to make sure I didn't make a mistake. And then I'll put a secondary mark on it. So that way, in case the phone rings, I have to take off. When I come back, I recognize that I've marked these twice. It means it's done, and move on. And then every time you add a piston, you want to go ahead and rotate the assembly and make sure there's no binding, anything weird before you move on to the next one. Because what you don't want to do is install all your pistons and connecting rods and it's locked up and you don't know where it started the issue. So then you'd have to remove all of them, start over again. But that's it in a nutshell. I know, nerd information.